Hello and welcome to Playwright, a podcast about creating and sharing new ways to play. My name is Ryan Hamann, rather, also called H. You'll find out why in a moment.
And I'm Ryan Quintal, also called Q.
Last week was our debut on the Cane & Rinse Network, and the reviews are in. We're a huge hit. Everyone's really loving the podcast. It's far overtaken Cane & Rinse in popularity, and really, we're not trying to embarrass anyone. We just wanted to have fun with our friends.
Nobody could have guessed, least of all us, that we would have been in a wonderful position to take the number one spot on the network away from the coveted, of course, I guess now sister show, as opposed to, what would it be before, the mother show or something. Now that we're on top, we're going to be enacting some changes over the next few weeks. You guys will see what we mean.
That's right. First of all, Sausage Factory. We all like sausages, but what about bratwurst?
Exactly.
I mean, isn't that just a gentleman's sausage? And by that, let's move past that.
Yes, it is. And it goes great with sauerkraut, H, and I'm loving every second of it.
But I hear that the Cane & Rinse crew has a secret ace up their sleeve. They are readying currently to take down Playwright. Of course, they created a monster that they didn't realize would get so out of control and become such a cultural phenomenon. They are preparing a Sound of Play offshoot that is all Halloween specials every week. So let's see what that does for them.
Yeah, I don't have much hope that they're going to pull it out, but now that we're on top and sitting pretty, I'm happy to be here, and we're looking forward to even more Playwright.
Speaking of sitting on top and pulling it out,
we're doing the most today.
There's something in the water, I think. It's time for me to pull out a video game pitch to deliver to the people. What I want to see is a event-style Dungeons & Dragons type of tabletop game done through a digital format that are hosted by celebrities. And so, maybe like this Bandersnatch movie that's been all the rage lately. They create these kind of like wonderful, sprawling, branching stories that players can play through as parties that are hosted by different celebrities, writers, podcast hosts, whatever, each available only for a short window of time. So they're kind of an event as they're happening. And the graphics would be fairly simple, maybe just kind of a pencil drawings on graph paper type look, and would be formatted like one of those 3D dungeon crawlers like Etrian Odyssey, the Persona Q games, one of those, dungeon crawlers. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's kind of a loose collection of ideas right now, but I'll see if that takes us anywhere. We'll go ahead and start the clock.
This is so dang smart. I wish I thought of it myself. It feels like the ultimate combination of like Twitch and YouTube, like celebrity access culture, but also like Cameo a little bit.
No, explain this Cameo, because the only one that I know is the Xbox 360 launch title.
Oh, okay, well, it's called Cameo Elements of Power. You can turn into several different forms. No.
Oh, so we are talking about the same one.
No. My Cameo, there's a service. You can Google it. It's called Cameo, Cameo. You can go and pay any, let's say C to Z level celebrity to basically say whatever you want into a camera, and then you can send it to whoever you want. Most notably, I got one this past Christmas from Scott Rogowski, host of HQ Trivia, telling me that I'm a great person, which was very fun. Yeah, so there's all this kind of like pay and get your favorite celebrity. Maybe that's an additional angle to this of like, you can pay to get the Brett Favre dungeon crawler, which would be very strange, I imagine.
Yeah, it would be almost like the Hitman elusive targets, where every once in a while they bring in like a famous person. And I think both of them to this point have been voted on by the community, just among a couple of options, people that they knew they could get. Must be kind of awkward to go to the other one and say, sorry, people wanted Sean Bean instead.
You know what I like about this is that you can kind of go two ways with it, right? You can go Sean Bean. You could do the this week's adventure is brought to you by Cardi B, right? And you can go way high. Or you could go the really video game nerdy angle and say like, hey, this week we're going to do one with maybe a Steve Gaynor. We're going to do one with Miyamoto. And just like do the video game celebrities. And I love the idea of Mizuguchi being involved. And you could even get weird with it. Maybe you can say, hey, this next one is going to be like the Duffer Brothers who did Stranger Things. And you go a little tangential, but still, oh man, those people probably tell a really cool story.
If there was a limited time kind of the Adventure Zone style Dungeons and Dragons raid that like everyone could participate in, I think that we would be seeing some pickup off of that. And, you know, it would become like a little thing that people were talking about. How did your adventure go? Oh, I didn't find that route my way through. And there would be people that were working at this kind of games as a service company, keeping it running, that would work with the celebrities and the storytellers to, you know, they've done it before. They've done it multiple times. They can kind of outline how each of these stories should be structured and what things to include and what to avoid, and kind of do most of the legwork for the celebrity storytellers. And they just kind of come in and tell the stories, you know, design a few monsters that the team could draw. I want to keep it all very like easy to iterate upon, easy to produce, and easy to make things appear kind of I want a lot of variety. And so you can get very abstract, you can get very dynamic and creative with what you're able to, you know, so really no limits on the storyteller. They can do whatever they want to do with assurance that the team can form it together in the however many weeks it takes to produce one of these.
Yeah, especially if you formatted it on a timed basis so that it's like every Saturday night it refreshes or something like that, then you could have people tuning in. I can imagine Jack Black of the world would do a very good job with this, especially if the celebrities could kind of voice all the NPCs. So you kind of like are combining a celebrity Twitch stream with the idea of like group participation dungeon crawling, which is really cool.
Yeah, and so, you know, I think it would be kind of a significant ask to get these celebrities into the studio in the first place. It would take a little bit of money up front, but you know, if you can get this on mobile, or if you can make a kind of a PC and a console mainstay, then I can see it turning a profit, being a good idea. What can we do in terms of gameplay? I'm going to keep things, as I said, pretty open to all sorts of different directions that it can go, but at the same time, you know, we need some structure to base it on so that it feels like you're actually playing a consistent game from week to week and not just, you know, going on some sort of not just watching a different movie every week. Yeah,
that's fair. I wonder if there's an aspect to it that like the day kicks off, or the event kicks off with a little interview with the celebrity. It gives them a chance to like plug what they want to plug. And then that way you kind of take care of some of the, why would I even participate in this? Because you have a bunch of live people who are looking to like listen to you. And then you actually ask them like, okay, what kind of world are we talking about? And maybe you have just very simple theming and like music systems that the people who are quote running the game can assemble as the celebrity starts talking about it. So you almost like build the feel all the way leading into the start of the game, maybe over the course of like 5-10 minutes, maybe it's longer than that. And then that way, like by the time you're at the end of that, you have, if you're using Etrian Odyssey as a guide, they're like the location and the kind of linear nature of it, but it's like a very simplistic 3D stylized engine with custom little monsters and stuff that generates. And then maybe the monsters are random and the celebrity like voices what they feel like the voices of the monsters would be.
One of the things that I've always been excited to try, not always, it's kind of a newer game, so can't account for it for most of my life, but ever since hearing about it, I've always wanted to try the multiplayer mode in Divinity Original Sin 2. I guess you can play a campaign, either the main story campaign or a custom campaign with other people over the internet or locally. And that's kind of interesting to play through like a big RPG together with other people. And I know that kind of thing exists in like MMOs, but I've never seen that kind of thing in a primarily linear story-based RPG outside of the tabletop realm. And so if we can kind of recapture some of that as well, I want something that can kind of feel like you're supposed to be playing it as a party, although if you wanted to go in alone, then you can, or you can group up with randos or something, and have a chat amongst yourself, and then to have essentially the celebrity voice being the dungeon master and kind of greeting you on the way in, say, oh, hi, thanks for playing my game, and let's see, here we go. What kind of character, narrating those steps of the process to make it feel very personal, and maybe a few kind of like moments throughout the story that break the fourth wall or kind of take you out of the fiction and give you a chance to feel like you're all just sitting around a room in somebody's garage together.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And if you take the cadence of it, you'll probably end up with weeks that it feels like Saturday Night Live, where like sometimes the host is like, whatever, but the people who are running the game like serve up a really good dungeon that week. And then sometimes maybe the dungeon could be maybe a little bit less exciting, but it's made up for by the sort of personality and the enigmaticness of the host. So I think it's a nice way to kind of balance picking up off weeks, one side helping the other.
And of course, the musical guest is always a memorable portion of the show as well.
That's right. That's a separate but also good idea. This week's music comes from PROTODOME. It's the theme song, Hello World, to the podcast Playwright. There we go. I plugged it nice and early so I don't have to do it at the end of the show.
There we go.
It's hard for me to think of gameplay innovation here because in my head, I already get it, but what is there a twist? Is there something that we have to do?
One of the things that I wanted to think about is that we only have not that long left, but at least to put the idea out there that, most of these types of games, dungeon crawlers and RPGs, are based on kind of long-term gameplay habits. And even if you are playing a D&D campaign, it's supposed to be something that you and the same group of friends come back to week after week, carry over the same characters until they die off, and then you roll new characters and, just whatever it takes to get the story moving. And so if this is a unique adventure every week, and if everything is like really time exclusive, what happens when the time limit expires and maybe you didn't get all the way through the campaign? Or do we want to keep all the campaigns digestible to just one sitting? Like, where do we fall in that balance?
I wonder if you take there's like no on-demand version of it. Like, I think HQ Trivia was kind of proof positive that some critical mass number of people are willing to tune into a thing. Granted, that was for 3 minutes. Maybe if these adventures contain themselves to an hour to 90 minutes, that it could totally dominate. But to me, it feels best served as a live type of thing.
Yeah, live would be tricky because of the interactive nature. And so if you make a lot
of polling,
choice,
I imagine.
Yeah. But anyways, that's all the time that we have there. We're going to have to close that down and leave that up to the community to see where that goes from here. Let's give it a name now.
I wonder if you want to lean into and maybe go some version of Celebrity Dungeon.
America's Next Top DM.
America's Next Top DM is good. You could maybe also, is there something about DM and some up in my DMs joke for Twitter?
Because there are people sliding into the role of Dungeon Master week after week.
Celebrity DMs is a good title.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I like that. It's a nice mixture of the two. Cool. Well, let's move now to your pitch. What are you bringing us today?
Well, I don't know if you've been paying attention to the video game landscape lately, but apparently you can announce and launch battle royale games over the span of about 8 hours these days. No prior development. It's incredible.
This is that, Aphex Twin game that I've been seeing? Whoa.
Yeah, the Aphex Twins.
I've just seen headlines. I've not really dug too deep into this. Why don't you give some context?
Sure. So there is something called Apex Legends, a recently launched PUBG meets Overwatch style game by the makers of Titanfall. It takes place in the Titanfall universe, and it got me thinking, as long as we're smashing up, I thought Overwatch was a good thing to smash into Battle Royale, but another Battle Royale angle, and we've had a few on the show, for me, would be a Banjo-Kazooie nuts and bolts battle royale where 100 players drop into a giant junkyard and have to assemble death machines. Maybe they can't even really do damage to each other without anything on their vehicle, so people are scrambling for parts and wheels and rockets and all sorts of things, and physicsy vehicle battling ensues.
I love it. All right, well, let's start the clock. There's another game I like to point to whenever Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts comes up, and this is maybe just to give some additional exposure to an indie who's out there working hard. But there's a game called Captain Forever Remix, which takes a similar idea to Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts in that your vehicle is entirely constructed out of these blocks that are easy to freely assemble, and it's like a space shooter type game in 2D, and you fly around, you shoot other ships, you break off pieces of their ship, and you try to slap it onto yours and attach it, and you come away with these kind of weird ships that don't really make a lot of logical sense, but you do what you can with what you have. And that has that kind of combat element as well, but I think turning this into something that's multiplayer in the same way that Battlegrounds or Fortnite is a really cool idea.
Yeah, I actually think I played Captain Forever Remix a little bit at an event, but I like the aesthetic of it, and I think that maybe that could potentially simplify this. Of it, it kind of plays like a multiplayer Asteroids, a 100-player Asteroids on a giant space map where you're kind of assembling things in 2D. But yeah, initially I was thinking my favorite part about Battle Royale games, and I don't have a lot of favorite parts, but my favorite part about Battle Royale games thus far has been the sheer panic of trying to find the right stuff and the joy of discovering something good. And it's not at all the shooty bits. So I thought, like, if I could get a Battle Royale game that was very focused on not only finding stuff and then assembling it, maybe in like different or unique ways. Somebody sees my vehicle approaching, and little do they know I have guns mounted to the back of the thing as opposed to the front. And being able to surprise somebody with things like weapon direction or maybe even ammo, I think that could be kind of neat. Whether you have to like make and process your own ammo somehow very quickly, or instead you're looking at options like creating a flying vehicle versus a land vehicle and balancing the stability therein. You want something small is going to be potentially not safe, but it's going to be very fast and nimble, and something large obviously makes you a large target, but you get a lot more firepower behind it too.
So there's a choice that we have to make here, and that is, do we, Captain Forever Remix, you stay in your spaceship at all times, you fly around and you can attach things kind of haphazardly to the outside of your craft. It kind of continues to grow and expand in ways that just on the edge of being unpredictable, which is kind of the fun. You're supposed to adapt to whatever the game gives you. Whereas Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, you can get out of your vehicle and you run around, you pick up blocks, and you have kind of an entire bespoke creation screen. Now, I don't know if I would want to retreat to to Mumbo's Garage anytime I want to create a new vehicle, but well, I guess the question boils down to how much control over what our vehicle looks like do we want to give people? Do they get out of the vehicle to pick up blocks and attach them right where they want to be, or do they just kind of roll over things and Katamari their way to a bigger vehicle?
Yeah, that's a good question. At first I would have said that it would be a little bit more like kind of driving into or happening upon objects, but now with Fortnite and the dexterity, I see people able to assemble entire towers. I don't think I'm that afraid to letting people sort of attach cubes to each other. If you have that sort of nuts and bolts-esque cube system, you could, if you made the controls, always kind of intuitive, where you had, we'll say on a controller that your right trigger is always going to be whatever's firing on the right-hand side of the ship, the left trigger the same, and then you use the joysticks to kind of steer Halo style. I think there could be like very fun and different things. I could see somebody hot swapping a rocket's direction on their vehicle to maybe quickly escape a battle, but be able to continue firing in front of them.
There could be an interesting risk reward to getting out of your vehicle to place something exactly where you want it to be, because, you know, you're vulnerable when you're not protected by your vehicle. There could even be different starter vehicle shapes.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I was over the weekend playing a little bit of Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, actually. And
putting out fires?
I was liking the pod racing stuff, how many different shapes there are to the pods, and how they all seem to kind of work a little bit differently. And that's kind of interesting as well. So, you know, maybe there are, multiple ways to skin a cat, or you can, as long as your vehicle gets you where you need to go, it doesn't really matter. There was a lot of, stages in Nuts and Bolts, especially where there were so many solutions to whatever you were trying to accomplish. You can create a plane to fly you over a gap. You can roll yourself in a giant ball to spring over it, you know?
I think the idea of a mini preset chassis is really fun. And if you took it and you allowed some people, maybe you have some matches where, you know, people had their kind of plane starter and some matches that had their more of a like car sort of starter. You could even maybe do a boat starter and get the full Diddy Kong racing experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing that would be important is potentially the smallest core part of your vehicle that doesn't have much in terms of weapons and maybe has like, say, starter wheels or whatever. That doesn't necessarily... I don't think it could be as fragile as a nuts and bolts vehicle. I think that part of it would pretty much stay together. And maybe that's even the part of it that takes the core damage, right? And you can actually bolt on a bunch of parts to protect it against that damage. And so you're kind of balancing building a shield and this protection at the same time as you are trying to get it so that this thing is more powerful and more nimble or faster, swapping out wheels and the like.
I do like the idea of destructibility as well, that you can kind of target aspects of opponents' cars to knock off a wheel or something and send them careening in the wrong direction. You can knock off guns and maybe even attach them to your own ship. There was a bit of a risk of running in close to pick up the downed weapon because that's right where the enemy is. And if they have another way of defending themselves, then maybe you are running into hostile hands. But to get those extra weapons, it could be worth it sometimes.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's fun about that is so often, you know, pay to win is deemed this like nasty thing, and for good reason. But I think if somebody is a high level person, or if you do an unlocking system where someone can get better parts, the idea of a person like exploding on the battlefield after they, die or whatever, and their great parts kind of flying into the air and people doing a mad dash for them. I would even do I don't remember if the vehicles had this in Nuts and Bolts, but I know that Banjo himself seemed to have like a little bit of a magnet ability for puzzle pieces.
Yeah, he had he had it's like Mumbo's wrench or something that he can use to kind of like levitate things in the direction he wants them to go.
I thought that would be like that as a potential on the battlefield weapon where you could Mumbo's wrench off different parts of other people's vehicles. So if you can close in the range, which is potentially a dangerous thing to do, then you get the benefit of potentially being able to steal a rocket or an engine or, whatever off the enemy's car.
Yeah, so we're coming towards the end of our time frame, so let's go ahead and close that down and try to come up with a name for this. I was thinking, following on the tradition of Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, and this being the Battle Royale version of that, essentially, we can call this Bolt Action.
Oh, should we... Hey, they don't seem to be making them anymore, so should we just go ahead and make this a Banjo game and call it Banjo-Kazooie Bolt Action?
That feels like a Banjo-Kazooie Ratchet and Clank crossover.
It really does. Wow, that's strange. Do we need to say anything about Battle Royale in this? Maybe just Bolt Action says it all.
Yeah, I think people, unless the game says otherwise, assume that everything is a Battle Royale now anyways, so...
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's do it.
All right, let's move to the community. And we have another pitch from our friend Richard Head today, who says, "Hey guys, my pitch is tackling the overcrowded zombie genre and trying to make something different from it. My idea is set in a world where the zombies have already taken over, but humanity is making a comeback and are close to taking back control. In a normally depressing setting, this game will be bright, cheery, and colorful. Zombies have mostly been exterminated across the world, and you play as a man in a near-indestructible suit of armor that's hunting down and killing all the remaining zombies within the game's area. Everyone you meet is happy and cheerful, despite how dark and disturbed they actually are. Hope my pitch makes a cut. Thanks for taking the time to read this anyways." Awesome. Well, let's get started.
I like the positive spin on the zombie genre. I think that the zombie game scene has been lacking its Zombie Land, which is one of my favorite zombie movies.
There is a, what is it called? Sunset Overdrive? Is that the name?
It is. It totally is. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's close. They're not quite zombies, but they're right, infected or whatever the other popular colloquialism is for zombies these days.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, because this pitch doesn't really talk to us about what the goal is. I mean, I know it's to wipe out the rest of the zombies, but like if we're in this indestructible suit, you're just having a good time. Maybe this thing is a walking simulator of sorts, and you're kind of just very relaxed going from place to place, having good conversations with people while you're, sticking knives through fences and into skulls.
I believe that, let's see, Dead Island also had a slightly lighter tone, but in those ones you are severely disadvantaged, is taking advantage of the kind of horror genre, and you are struggling your way through overwhelming odds. And it sounds like we want something that feels just the opposite, which is kind of a fresh take. It's if you think of Dead Rising, is that that's the one in the mall, right?
Yeah,
That's
totally.
the right name? Yeah, that is almost like a Dynasty Warriors type game where you are just a lone dude and you're finding weapons in the environment and slicing your way through zombies, and they don't really individually pose that much of a threat. Like your greatest threat is really just running out of time to do all the things you want to do. But it's fun, it's wacky, it's goofy. But let's think about something that's maybe a little bit more grounded, maybe not. We're in a giant piece of battle armor, so maybe we are just like slicing through zombie hordes. Maybe we are like an exterminator in a world where zombies are seen as like pests that get into people's homes and we have to go there and clean them out. I don't know.
I was thinking that because it's so easy with zombies to get into the genre of shooters or horror. And I think what does a zombie game feel like if you smash it up against a Persona? Where you're like making play dates with people and you're having like you're developing friendships, and every once in a while you're like, all right, it's after 7 p.m. I'm done my homework. Time to go smash some zombies. And that itself is just kind of like a fun little, they're mostly underground now. We go into the tunnels, we kill some zombies, we let off some steam, tell each other some jokes, and then we're back at school and, the sun's shining and everyone's happy the next day. But of course, with that very strange, like people are kind of psychotic undertone.
This does have kind of a Clockwork Orange feel to it or something. There's something not quite right under the surface there.
What else? What other kind of things could we do to pull this away from just being a shooter?
Maybe there's, this is kind of taking in a different direction, but maybe there's, I was always interested in Bayonetta, the way that it positioned humanity as kind of existing in between a war happening between like the angels and demons and the forces of heaven and hell. Maybe there are ways to kind of encounter folks of all different types of afterlives where you have the traditional zombies, people that come back from the dead. Maybe you have angels, you have, you get sent to heaven or hell or whatever. Maybe there's reincarnation where if you kill an enemy, it'll come back as something else, kind of like the multiple faces of a boss fight, or maybe, I don't know, just different like afterlife traditions in various cultures. I'm not sure if there's anything there.
Yeah, that would be kind of cool. And especially if we had a lot of stuff that was in the game that almost had the George Romero Day of the Dead / Land of the Dead style handling of a zombie, where zombies have actually been like put to work. They're a little bit utilitarian. Like people are using them to like plow farmland and that sort of stuff. Maybe heck, this is even like a little city sim where you have little zombies that you're putting to work, and you go out on adventures in your like crazy suit, and you go to like wrangle up zombies and like kill the dangerous ones, but all the docile ones, you're looking for docile ones, and you can kind of take them and be able to control them.
Like a Metal Gear type of scenario where you can just steal some of the enemy soldiers.
Yeah, attach a giant balloon to them and just go.
Now that's an idea. Maybe humanity defeated the zombies. The zombies can't be killed, of course, even if you blow them apart or whatever it takes. The easiest way to get rid of a zombie is to attach a balloon to it. And so that was the solution that people came up with. And now the sky is full of zombies. And every once in a while it starts like raining teeth, or like a finger will fall on somebody's sandwich or something. And they're like, we got to take care of this problem. We've been putting it off for too long. They're just up there. And, they're starting to block our view. And so you are sent up in like a hot air balloon to exterminate zombies in various ways.
Okay, that's cool. So now we have like a sky zombie adventure of sorts?
Yeah, zombies in the air.
All right, zombies in the air, zombies on the ground. I love this. So how is the suit a part of that? How do we kind of like, I feel like that should be something in here.
Maybe you can Iron Man your way around and just fly about and shoot the zombies, or maybe this is like back in time, like in the castle days, and everyone just attaches things to balloons because they don't have better weapons, and so you have to go up in a hot air balloon in your suit of armor and like swipe at them with your sword or something. I don't know.
This is great. So what if you do, okay, because I really want the tone to be really fun, and I think that one of the things that most zombie games do is they make you very alone. So if you had a friend, it's like a co-op adventure steampunk game where you're like attaching zombies and you're beating them with like brass pipes and this sort of thing. You're also taking, some amount of zombies and they've got them like chained up and serving you espressos and that sort of stuff. So we have like people are putting zombies to work in very funny and clever ways, and you have like weird people who are, rallying for zombie rights, and other people who are trying to marry zombies, and zombies just as a sub in for every social thing. And then you put on top of it some sort of fun, like, wisecracking buddy comedy adventure on top of it. And I think that could be pretty fun.
It's very creative. Yeah, that's I'm getting a lot of ideas here. No, I don't mind that at all. I'm getting a lot of ideas here. I just don't really, they're not coalescing in my brain into a video game in the same way that most of our pitches do.
Yeah, it keeps going into like almost movie territory in my head, I think, because maybe because of the thought of it being cheery and colorful, as Richard said here. So what types of games have a near indestructible protagonist? I think that because that's like part of it.
There's a lot of games where destructibility doesn't matter so much, like rhythm games. You can pretty much put whatever you want on screen in those cases. You could, in the Dynasty Warriors type of games, you are mostly indestructible. Like you're never going to die, really. Like you're just going to fail one of your submissions or whatever. And there's the old favorite, the cooking game, of course, but we retreat to that when our well is empty quite frequently, I think.
And everything just becomes a cooking game eventually.
Trivia games.
You could kind of do a Jackbox style party game, but I love the idea of being in the universe in my head. Here it is. Maybe it's like an Animal Crossing. And you're going over, everybody's got their own little garden. Zombies are essentially the equivalent of weeds or whatever. They're really like, they're just nuisances. They're they're just coming and like trying to chew on your cows as you're as you're trying to have a nice little time, and you go out and you give them a whack, and it's almost Minecraft-esque in its innocence or its portrayal of zombies. They just kind of moan and they're silly, but then you can like take the zombie heads and make a weird like Walking Dead fish tank of them, and all the villagers are wearing weird like, oh, I sewed on 2 extra arms to myself to give. I really like the look of 4 arms on me.
That's kind of funny. Anyways, let's close that one down. We've run out of time. I don't know if we've come up with a solid direction yet, but we at least gave us lots of ideas to think about. So let's come up with a name for this silly zombie adventure. This could be called Zombinis, which is much like the classic educational game Zombinis.
Oh, who could forget?
I think that's what it was called.
Yeah, I've never heard of that, but I'm down for calling it that.
Yeah, if you're collecting them like Pokemon or something, then that kind of fits.
The more that you sort of collect, maybe the more you study and learn about them. You're a creepy little scientist. But
all right. Well, thank you, Richard Head, for sending that one in. And we encourage everyone to write in either to our website, playwrightcast.com/pitch. You can tweet us at playwrightcast, or you can email us playwrightcast@gmail.com.
Special thank you to, I don't have to thank PROTODOME. Hey, if you're just starting to listen, it's probably because you're a big fan of the Cane and Rinse Network. We're now a member of it, and they've got other great shows on the network like The Sausage Factory with interviews with game developers, Sound of Play, the video game music podcast, which if you love H here, he's one of the hosts that does a wonderful job every few weeks here, and the Cane and Rinse video game podcast deep dive discussions on video games that everybody loves.
All worth checking out. Well, we will leave you with one small idea today to take us out, and I think I am going to double down on an Aphex Twin battle royale until everyone has that weird smile, like have a similar aesthetic. Anyways, we'll see you next week.
Bye.